Good evening, everybody. This is Larry Smith with Credit Talk. Coming to you this evening, I'm your host. Again, I'm attorney Larry Smith. I'm a Chicago attorney dedicated to consumers' rights. And we're here to talk about credit. So welcome to Credit Talk. We'll be taking calls all night. Whenever you want to give us a call, we're here for 25 more minutes. So give us a call. You can call us at 312-738-1060. That's 312-738-1060. And if at any time you need help afterwards, or maybe you don't get your call in tonight, you can always call our help desk afterwards at 773-862-4000. That number's right behind me. Again, I'm Larry Smith. I'm an attorney. We're here to talk about credit. And tonight, I'm going to focus on identity theft. Identity theft is something that affects 10 million Americans a year. On average, 10 million Americans a year. So that's one in every... Anyway, so a lot of people get affected by identity theft. And there's so many different ways it happens. It can happen from you're losing your credit card, losing your wallet, and somebody getting a hold of your cards. Somebody getting a hold of your ID can then use your ID to get themselves credit. If you give your card to somebody to swipe, there are swiping machines that people can use that can read the magnetic code on the card and take the information off. That's one way that identity theft happens. We've heard about hacking. There have been security breaches at some of them at the major credit reporting agencies. There's been security breaches at a lot of banks, a lot of finance companies. When those hackers get in and get that information, they have personal information of people that they can use to obtain credit in that person's name. You can just have your card sitting around and somebody can copy your number. Losing your social security number and somebody gets that information that shouldn't have it. Those are all ways that somebody can commit identity theft and make you a victim of identity theft. What they can do then is they can either, if it's a matter of getting your credit card number or you're swiping your credit card, they can just start using your card and using your information, using your card to buy and just shop online as much as they'd like. If they have your information, your social security number, then they can go apply for credit in your name. They could apply for apartments in your name. They could apply for automobiles in your name, home loans in your name, payday loans, whatever they can possibly get to accept, they could apply for in your name. And now what happens? You're a victim of identity theft. And what's the what's the effect of identity theft? I mean, what happens when somebody has your information and they've done something to you? Obviously, if they've used your credit card, the effect is that you've got a higher balance and you need to fight with your credit card company over whether or not you should be dealt those charges. But if somebody is using your information to get credit, then what's going to happen is those creditors are going to open credit cards thinking it's you and your name. They're going to start reporting to the credit bureaus under that name, social security number, and they're going to send information to the credit bureaus about that account being open. And then the thief who uses that card and charges it up to the limit doesn't pay on it. So now the creditor is going to start reporting to the credit reporting agencies that you've charged the account up to the limit and you haven't paid it. And then you get charged off. And that's absolutely terrible for your credit. So the effect of identity theft is that it can absolutely destroy your credit. Okay, and we're here to talk about credit, so give us a call at Credit Talk, 312-738-1060. That's 312-738-1060. If you need our help desk, 773-862-4000. Give us a call. So now we're going to talk about, okay, you're a victim of identity theft. Somebody's gotten your information. Somebody has opened accounts in your name. What are you going to do now? What's the steps? Well, the first thing you should do is report it to the police. I mean, you're a victim of a crime, and it's a good idea to contact the police, go to the station, and let them know. Getting a copy of a police report is very effective when you're dealing with creditors or the credit reporting agencies down the road, because you're going to have to. Okay, so it's always good to show that you've really meant it, that you're willing to prosecute, you're willing to step up, you're willing to help a prosecutor out if they find who did this, and so you'll go report to the police, because the presumption is you're not going to go create a false police report with the police, because that in and of itself is a crime. So you're going to go to the police, and you're going to be honest, so that carries with it a lot of weight. So you go to the police station, you tell them you're a victim, you give them all the information you can, they'll prepare a report, and they'll give you a copy of it, or a copy of something that shows you prepared a report. You might not get a copy of the actual report. What you might have to do then is take what they gave you, which is it's an information that tells you how to get a copy of it, and you'll go order a copy of it. It's called a Freedom of Information Act request, and you're allowed to see it. So you can get a copy of your report, and you want to hold on to that, because a police report showing that you went and complained of identity theft is very important and helpful. The second thing you want to do is you want to go to the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission's website. They have a website, and they have a section of their website that deals specifically with identity theft. And there is an affidavit that they have there. Okay, an affidavit is a legal document that you are swearing and attesting to the contents of it are true and accurate under the penalties of perjury. So you will prepare, they have a wonderful portal, this website, the FTC's, that helps you go just right in, type in, and prepare your affidavit by typing in the information. There's all the boxes to fill in. They'll let you fill in everything that includes the names that are being used of yours that you don't ever use, because you'll look on your, one thing you'll do is you'll look at your credit report. We'll get to that in a second, but you want to talk about what's on your credit report that's not yours. So you'll have this FTC affidavit that you're going to fill out, and you're going to need that too. Okay? Now, the other thing you're going to do is you're going to contact the credit reporting agencies. Now, I'm going to say contact all three, but the truth is that by law, if you contact one of them and make an identity theft claim, then they have to signal a notification to the other two, and they do. Okay, but you never know when those little signals, and there's little glitches in the system. So it's always a good idea to double your efforts, because after all, this is your good name on the line and your credit on the line. So contact all three credit reporting agencies. You could do it by phone, you could do it by email, you could do it by letter. This particular instance, I recommend you call them. I recommend you call them up, tell them you're an identity theft victim, give them your information. They will notify you they are putting a fraud alert on your credit report that will last for 90 days, and they will give you a copy of your credit report. And you can then take a look at it, and you can see what information on there doesn't belong. Now, the problem is with this, is that at the moment, usually if you're just finding out you're an identity theft victim, and it's something that it only just happened within the last few months, the effects of it aren't going to show up in your credit report yet. If you were a victim, if somebody had your information 5-6 months ago, or before you're looking at your credit report, then yeah, that information should all appear there on the credit report. There should be reporting of the accounts that were open within the last 5 or 6 months. They usually report right away. But if you're just finding out about identity theft right after it happens, you're not going to see much from it. Okay, so. But you're going to tell them you're a identity theft victim. They'll put a fraud alert on your credit report. You'll see your credit report. Now, you take that credit report and you're going to go back to your FTC affidavit, because you're going to use that credit report to fill out the affidavit. The affidavit's going to ask you about things on your credit report. It's going to ask you, are there names that are being used that are on the report that are saying this is a way that you use your name that you absolutely don't and you never have on any document. They'll ask you if there are addresses on your credit report that are not your addresses, that you've never lived at, are fraudulent addresses, or any other information, accounts. They'll ask you also what inquiries. So you look at your credit report. There's also a section of your credit report that your credit report shows that your identification is at the front, your names and the different affectations of your name. the address that you live at now and all the previous addresses reported by all the creditors on your credit report, and then accounts, all the accounts that are in your name. And after the accounts, it then reports all the inquiries. And inquiries are those companies that have accessed your credit report or looked at your credit report for any legal reason that there is to look at your credit report. Now, there are different kinds of inquiries. There's what you call account reviews, and then there's what you call inquiries. People think of them as hard pulls and soft pulls. Hard pulls being real inquiries, soft pulls being account reviews. And soft pulls are really when your own creditors are just taking a look and a peek just to make sure that you're still economically healthy and staying within the bounds of what they want as your creditor. But when you're applying for credit, when somebody applies for credit, those show up as what's called a hard inquiry. It's a real inquiry in your credit report. You want to look at that. You want to see who has looked at your credit report and do you recognize them. The credit bureaus will report inquiries for 2 years, up to 2 years. So you'll be able to see everybody or every company that has looked at your credit report for the last 2 years. Okay? So, and listen, folks, if you have any questions about any of this, I'm here for a little while longer. Call me, 312-738-1060. Give me a call. I'm here to talk about credit. If there's something else that's not dealing with what I'm talking about, not identity theft, listen, I'm a consumer rights lawyer. I do all kinds of consumer rights in Chicago. You can give me a call, okay? So you're creating the FTC affidavit. One of the things that we talked about is you're going to put down the inquiries that you did not do, the inquiries that you did not make. In other words, you see, let's say, for instance, a certain bank is on your credit report as of having done an inquiry in January of 2018. Well, you know for certain that in January of 2018, you didn't make any applications to any bank at all. So that would be an inquiry that you didn't do. You want to have that put in the FTC affidavit. So you're going to complete this whole FTC affidavit with all the information that's false. Accounts, inquiries, names, addresses, everything. And then you want to notify, looks like we have a caller coming in. Caller?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So, I actually had a question about identity theft.
Sure. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. All right, so that happened to me, so I tried to go to the police station and file a report, but they just told me that no, they don't do that. So what do I do from there?
The police said no, they don't do that?
Or they just wouldn't, that I need to do it elsewhere, go elsewhere for it.
Were you in your own local department?
Yes.
How long ago was this?
I would say like a couple months ago.
Okay, all right. Well, that's odd. So when identity theft really started to become a problem, going back 10, 12 years ago, when the internet started to spike and it was starting to get easier to move things electronically, people would start going to the police about it. And when people would research what to do, they were learning that the credit bureaus would say, we'd like to see a police report. So people would go to the police, but the police didn't know what to do. So there was a lot of turning people away. There was a lot of saying, this is not a police matter. But I think that's changed a lot. So I'm surprised to hear that because it is a police matter. It is a crime, and you are a victim of a crime. And that's that's what's happening. You're the victim of a crime, and you have to go in there and say, "I'm a victim of it's a crime. It's identity theft." Now, if the police officer says, "Well, we don't do that," you say, you want to say to them, "Why? Why won't you? Why wouldn't you take care of a victim of a crime here?" And anything from that, then you would want to ask to speak with their superior because.
Okay.
Since when does a police officer get to decide, when they will or will not take a report of a crime? Looks like we have another caller. Or is that just that other caller that was there before? Hello, caller?
Hello, I have a question. I'm going to ask my question, and then I'm going to hang up and listen to your reply.
Okay. Go ahead.
My question is, can any entity look at make an inquiry on your credit report randomly, or does that require your consent?
Okay. That's a very good question. It requires your consent, but your consent comes many different ways. It's not just an express consent, meaning it's not something where they just have to have your signature. I was saying before, there's different kinds of inquiries. There's different kinds of ways that creditors can look at your credit report. So there's the main ways are if you apply for credit, if you apply for insurance, or you apply for employment, that's automatic. They have the absolute right to check your credit report. So that's a for sure. There's another exception to the law called the legitimate business exception, and that is when there is transaction going on where you might need to assure that person's credit's good. Let me give you an example. You go buy a vehicle, you walk into a dealership and you want to buy a car and you want to hand them a check and say, here's a check for the full amount of the vehicle. I'm not getting credit from you. I'm not going to be financing it. Here's a check. Well, that check's not going to clear for a few days. So the dealership's letting you drive off the lot with a vehicle. That's a legitimate business exception that why they would be able to check your credit report. So those are ways where you are expressly giving consent to do it. Other ways you are impliedly giving consent is after you've already been a customer. Like if you have a credit card, if you have a bank account, if you have an account with a certain creditor, while that account is open, or while you have a balance with them, they have every right to continue to check in on you. Okay, even though they're not going to call you and ask you for the okay to do it, they can do it. They can do it. So, yes, they have to have your permission to check your credit report. But oftentimes, if you're applying for them, you're giving it. But if you're not, and you have had no contact with them, and you have no account with them, and I've seen it happen. My firm's handled many of these cases where there's been no contact whatsoever. I've had stories of finance companies or car dealerships calling somebody up and saying, hey, do you want to help your friend or your cousin finance this car? And the person said no, but then there was an inquiry on their credit report. That wasn't legal. So there's a lot of times that people who have an expectation or belief that they can look at somebody's credit report, go ahead and do it. It's a little presumptuous, and they can't. They can't. So I hope that answered your question. Caller, I hope you're still there. You said you were going to hang up. Okay.
Oh, no, thank you.
Oh, you're still there. Did I answer it?
Yes, you did. You answered it very well. Thank you very
Anything
much.
else with that? Any other questions on that?
That'll be all. I'll just listen to the rest of the show here.
We doing good?
Yes.
Thanks so much. We got a little bit of time left, folks, so call on in. 312-738-1060. And if you run out of time and you don't get a chance to call us, or you want to talk to our help desk, again, 773-862-4000. We'll be glad to help you afterwards. But I'm still here for another 7 or so minutes, so give me a call if you can. We're talking about identity theft. I was talking about what you do when you're a victim. We got to the point we talked about you got your police report, you got your identity theft affidavit, and you got your credit reports. Now you have to wait and see what happens. Are there items on your credit report that don't belong to you? Are there accounts being opened in your name? Is somebody running up a balance on your line of credit? If that's happening, then what you must do is you must notify the credit bureaus. Again, go back to the credit bureaus. You've told them you're a fraud victim already. They've put a fraud alert on your credit report. So now they're not going to open any other accounts. But before you got that fraud alert on your report, before you knew about it, so you stopped the bleeding, right? You told them, okay, fraud alert, so now the bleeding's going to stop. Whoever has your information is not going to do anything going forward. But what about the past? What about everything that already happened to you? You have to go back to the credit bureaus and say, okay, credit bureaus, the following information isn't true. There's information that you're reporting about me that is part of the identity theft, and you want to tell them. You just don't want to say it's not mine. You want to say, this stuff on my report's part of the identity theft. And you tell them. Include the names that you don't use. Include the addresses that are not yours or you never had. But of course, point out the inquiries that you did not make. Now, they may not remove the inquiries, but it's good to at least let them know that you didn't authorize it. Because inquiries, looking at your inquiry section, after all, what it is it's just a record of who saw your report. So some people say, I want that inquiry off my report. And the credit bureaus would say, well, no, we're not taking the inquiry off because that's just a record of who saw your report. And those people saw your report, unfortunately. So, but you want to still let them know you didn't authorize the inquiry. And then you also want to let them know what accounts are not yours, obviously. So you want to put all that information down in a letter. You you must enclose a copy of the police report, enclose the FTC affidavit in a nice letter detailed to the credit bureaus that details all the things that are not correct in your credit report because of the identity theft. You put that little package together, your letter, your police report, your affidavit, and you mail it off. Okay? You should mail it in such a way that you can assure that you know it's delivered. Some people like certified, you got to get a green card, there's other registered mail ways. Our U.S. Post Office has ways that you can track so you can make sure it got there. Whatever you do, track it so you make sure it got there. Once they got it, they have 30 days from that point to get back to you, to investigate and get back to you. Part of that investigation includes, they must, within the 5 days that they get your letter, within 5 days they must contact the creditors of who you're complaining about. And tell those creditors that you're saying this is identity theft and have them partake in an investigation. And then they respond back to the credit bureaus, and the credit bureaus take whatever they might have done in any investigation, but they'll look at what the creditor has, and then respond back to you with what they're going to do with your credit report. Hopefully removing all the addresses, hopefully removing all the names, and hopefully removing all the accounts that were opened in your name that you did not have, that you did not do. If they do not, and they fail to do that, then arguably that would, it's the road to a violation of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. The Fair Credit Reporting Act provides that they must conduct a reasonable investigation into your claims. If you're giving them a police report, you're giving them an affidavit from the FTC, you're giving a very detailed letter of what's not yours, they should be able to, within 30 days, with the systems that they have and with the resources they have, should be able to come to the conclusion whether or not you were the person that actually opened that account. And if they fail to do that, I submit that then that's not a very reasonable investigation, given the resources that we know that they have. So that's what your rights are in an identity theft situation, folks. And that's what you're supposed to do. I'm only here, I got another minute, so if a call comes in, I'm glad to take it. But if not, I'm just going to kind of give you a little rundown of what we talked about today. Since we're going to be out of time, I'll tell you one more time. You need help from our help desk, 773-862-4000. Give us a call, we'll be here. Okay? So, we talked about identity theft, the different ways it happens. You can get your card swiped, you can get your wallet swiped, you can get your social security number taken. Somebody could hack into a system. There has already been a major hacking, so a lot of us are already, a third of Americans are already susceptible to potentially some form of identity theft that's going to happen. There's different ways it happens. It could be somebody that you know. Somebody staying at your house can lift your information, go away and open accounts. I've heard those stories. They're horror stories, but they happen. And what do? You go to the police, you go online to the FTC's website, you get a report, you get an affidavit, you call the credit bureaus, you make a credit report, you make an identity, you go to the credit bureaus and you make a fraud alert, you get your credit report, and then you start disputing. So folks, It has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Again, my name is Larry Smith, consumer rights attorney in Chicago. I hope you have a wonderful night. This is Credit Talk. Give us a call, and hope you have a wonderful evening.